Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston from Our Blooming Catholic Life, and today we're looking at St. Francis de Sales, but look, it's not Introduction to Devout Life, it's Consoling Thoughts on the Trials of an Interior Life, and it has been compiled by Pierre Huguet. On the back of the book, it details how this beloved doctor of the church addresses these questions. How can the soul persevere in piety in the midst of affliction? How can we profit from our own faults? He talks about how we can gain something from suffering, trials, and temptations, the advantages we can draw from our own defects, how to choose and carry the best crosses. There are also uplifting passages on suffering sadness, which we now call depression, this form of sadness. He was known to history as the gentle saint. He lived from 1567 to 1622 and was the Bishop of Geneva and a tireless preacher who corresponded with numerous souls who wrote to him for his insight and guidance. And this book is compiled from these letters as well as his other spiritual works. And I wanted you to stop for a second and be encouraged by that. So St. Francis de Sales, the great and famous spiritual director, actually communicated a lot through letters, through distance spiritual direction. I know in this time of the pandemic and now it's flu season, a lot of people don't want to go and travel to a spiritual director to meet face to face. It's super scary, as well as they're hesitant to do it over the phone or online, whether it's by Zoom or Google or however they want to do it. It's scary, but I want you to take some heart that one of the greatest spiritual directors of all time did correspondence by letters, spiritual direction. So it is a thing. It's been done. Again, if you can't find a spiritual director because there aren't enough around, right? There really aren't. And priests don't have time, as well as we now have some issues with whether or not priests should be counseling women just for safety concerns. Should it be a woman spiritual director with woman? I mean, there's so many considerations. Again, the priest's lack of time. You can always go to your priest and say, hey, I know you want to offer spiritual, if you know they want to. I'd love for you to be able to offer spiritual direction. Is there something I can take off your plate that will help you? What can I do to help you so that you do have time for spiritual direction, that you do have time for your own proper formation? Like, go and ask your priest, legit, what can I do to help you? Now, ladies, that doesn't mean that you should be becoming women priests or going up and hanging out around the altar, doing all those weird things. You shouldn't be becoming altar boys to help the priest. Now, if your parish has a dearth, they don't have altar boys, perhaps there's a way that you could start a club where boys can grow in formation and learn about altar serving. It'd be great if men would do that. That would be a great thing for guys to do. Maybe the Knights of Columbus could take this on, an altar boy recruitment program where they could get them proper formation and just make it something back into what it used to be, where young boys would learn about the faith from men, and that they would grow in that vocation. Hopefully, if they hear the call of the priesthood, they'd be willing to answer it then. So that's something to consider. Does the priest just need somebody to organize his schedule differently or something? Like, I have no idea what it would be. I'm helping my priest out in some ways myself, but ladies, I'm not saying take over the job of the priest. Say, what can I do that would free you up? It could be making meals for the priest. Maybe you could make meals for the priest. Maybe you could clean their house. There are plenty of things that priests need done that aren't stealing their job, right? That aren't crossing that line into women being men or women trying to be priests. There's plenty of things that we can do to help them, right? In a non-creepy way. Don't go creepy. Somebody's going to go creepy that's watching this. Don't go in a creepy way on any of this. So we might be able to help them so that they can become spiritual directors. In the meantime, for those of you who have read Introduction to the Devout Life and are still seeking some more assistance in the time between when, you're able to get a spiritual director, this is still a great book. And in fact, your spiritual director might recommend it to you. Let's see. Have anything else on him? No, I think we're good with what's available on the back of the book. This was about a $15 book when it was published. Again, it's Tan Publishing. Let's see if we can find the date here. Wait. This is interesting. When you open it up, it says Consoling Thoughts of St. Francis de Sales' second book. So there was a book preceding this. We'll have to look that up. Translated from the French 27th edition. I've never even heard of this, and it has 27 editions already. What? Sorry, I'm trying to open it, and the pages are a little stuck together, or it's me. This was published in 2013, this particular edition. Very interesting. So we'll try and look that up to find out why it's the second book before the end of this. It starts out with a little some quotes of St. Francis de Sales to let you know his loving heart, to comfort you and make you more at ease, perhaps, of reading the book. So there's 2 quotes. The first one: "Through a great part of my soul, I am poor and weak, but I have a boundless and almost immutable affection for those who favor me with their friendship. Whoever challenges me in the contest of friendship must be very determined, for I spare no effort. There is no person in the world who has a heart more tender and affectionate towards his friends than I, or one who feels a separation more acutely." The second quote: "It has pleased God to make my heart thus. I wish to love this dear neighbor ever so much I wish to love him. Oh, when shall we all be melted away in meekness and charity towards our neighbor? I have given him my whole person, my means, my affections, that they may serve him in all his wants." So let's go in. The contents are set up, very nicely, the way I like, a proper way. The titles are all here, ... page numbers, and the page numbers aren't crammed into the corner of the book, so we can see them. Let's see if it's that way on this page. Yeah, see, they give a decent margin here. We've come across some books that don't give good margins on the table of contents, and the numbers are way in the crease and you can't read them. These are all pretty clear. There's more of these topics, though, than you may have realized. Okay, something that could have been done differently. They've written out like chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. They could have just put numbers in bold there, or chapter in the number and had it in bold. That does make it a little easier. But there's a lot here. And then there's a supplement at the end. There is a publisher's preface. Pretty easy to see when this new section is starting. Page numbers are bottom, middle, which kind of implies that the page numbers aren't normally super important. And when the page numbers are important, they're in the outside corners. They aren't here, so perhaps it's not going to be super important to us to have page numbers. Let's read this preface. "St. Francis de Sales was a man of great passion. Reading his thought is to know his heart. Has Holy Mother Church ever reared a child so willing and able to express his longing for perfect union with God? Has a man so learned ever presented truth and beauty so simply? Words cannot fully express the publisher's appreciation for this gentle saint, the Bishop of Geneva and a doctor of the Church. St. Francis was a lawyer, a theologian, and a missionary. As a young priest, he volunteered to re-evangelize the Calvinists of Chablis, France. He preached not only with conviction, but also with unparalleled gentleness and grace." That's something a lot of our priests aren't doing right now. How do you say the hard truths with gentleness and grace? So I'm really interested to get in and read some more of this. He worked tirelessly, even under the cover of night, slipping his apologetic writings beneath the doors of anti-Catholics. What? I've never heard this part before. The Lord rewarded him with one of the most remarkable and well-documented events in Catholic history, when nearly the entire population of 72,000 Calvinists returned to the faith. This volume, Consoling Thoughts, is representative of why St. Francis was so well received in Chablis, or Chablis, I'm not sure how you say it. I don't speak French. Pages are really sticking together. Indeed, throughout history, perhaps more than any other saint, St. Francis preached truth with love. His teachings, his work, and his very presence were consoling to those 72,000 lost souls and to millions of more over the centuries. Now then, it is our hope that they will offer consolation to a new generation of Catholics. It is for this reason that Tan Books is proud to bring this compilation of St. Francis's writings back to print. Initially published in a single volume, we now present this work in a 4-volume series. 4 volumes! They've only got volume 2! Oh no! I'm going to have to find them all now. Carefully arranged by topic to give solace in times of darkness or simply in times of deep meditation. It is the publisher's sincere hope that Consoling Thoughts finds a permanent home in your library and among the long list of St. Francis de Sales classics, including Introduction to the Devout Life, Treatise on the Love of God, Catholic Controversies, and Sermons of St. Francis de Sales. And it has in parentheses 4 volumes. So are the sermons in 4 volumes, or are those the names of the 4 volumes? No, the sermons must be in 4 volumes because this book isn't included in the list of 4, so there'd be at least 5. So there we go. St. Francis de Sales, Doctor of the Church, pray for us. And that note was from Robert M. Gallagher, publisher, November 19th, 2019. This book does have footnotes, the standard format with a line there and smaller print. They are done by numbers. Is it easy to see when there's a new section? Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's marked where the name of the book is here. And I believe this is the chapter, Maxims for Perseverance in Piety. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Yep. Oh, okay. And this is in the midst of affliction. So this is a shortened chapter title here. Wait, when did that happen? Once we got in the book, the numbers moved to the upper outside corners. So it's only in the introduction that they're in the bottom. That's meek and humble of them, that their little introduction. Oh, and it's really only that page. They tricked me. After those pages. So in the pages that are like an introduction, it's down here, and then it's in the upper corner. So it actually moves. Let's see if it's yeah, it's that's interesting. I've never seen that before. So whenever it's a new chapter, the page number's down here, and thereafter, it's in the upper outside corners. What? That's a funky little style, isn't it? Let's see here. Let's flip through. Again, there really aren't that many footnotes. And every chapter does seem to start with a blank page, and then this only using about 2/3 of a page. So it's pretty easy to see when there's a new chapter. Let's come to the back. Are there any? Yes, there are supplements. Oh my goodness. On page 143 in the back, it says, Adieu of St. Francis de Sales to the pious reader. It's like a little note from, it's a little note from St. Francis de Sales in the back. How sweet. Supplement says we should not despair of the salvation of any sinner. And that chapter is from a book called The Spirit of St. Francis de Sales by Camus, who is the Bishop of Bely. It's fairly short, has some small sections in it. It's very interesting that that's at the end. I'll show you what I mean by small sections. Like this one here has number 1 right there. So there's 2 sentiments of St. Francis de Sales on the number of the elect. So the points are all marked out in the supplement. Let's look at what the topics are. Oh, this print is super easy to read. The pages, you can see them. They're kind of creamy. They're the off-white color. Just a second. So they're a creamy off-white color. Probably Times New Roman 12. It's pretty easy to read. See what they are. Maxims. So chapter 1 is Maxims for Perseverance and Piety in the Midst of Afflictions. Chapter 2, Whence Our Miseries Come. Chapter 3, Conduct to be Observed in Interior Trials. Like, when you're having an interior trial, what does that look like? How do you go about your everyday life? He answers that. Chapter 4, The Perplexity of the Heart which loves without knowing whether it is loved. Ooh, deep. Chapter 5 means to preserve the peace of soul in time of trial. 6, to attain perfection, we must patiently endure our imperfection. You can see these topics look really complicated, and so I'm going to read a section in just a second. There are, even calumnies is in the end. Interesting. So there are 27 chapters, and we're just going to randomly flip to one and see what we have. Chapter 12, Consolation in Temptation. It's kind of funny. I opened straight up to the beginning of a chapter. Nice for us. This is on page 63. Be not troubled, however great the temptations that assail you. Let the enemy rage at the door. Let him stamp, thump, romp, yell, do the worst in his power. We are sure he cannot enter, but by the door of our consent. Let us keep it closed, often taking a look to see that it is properly fastened, and there is nothing to fear. Humble yourself very much, and be not at all surprised. The lilies that grow among the thorns are the whitest. What does he know who has not been tempted? What does he know who has not been tempted? That's a weird sentence. Sorry, that one is not working for me. It is a misfortune that you dread temptations so much. Be assured that all temptations of hell cannot sully a soul which is displeased with them. Let them do their worst then. The Apostle St. Paul suffered terrible ones, and God, out of love for him, would not remove them. Come, have courage. Let this heart belong to Jesus, and let the mastiff bark at the door as long as he pleases. Join the sweet Jesus and his sweet mother in the midst of darkness, nails, thorns, lances, derelictions. Live for a time in tears without obtaining anything. God will at length rejoice you, and grant you the desire of your heart. But even if he should not, let us not serve to cease him, for he does not cease to be our God, and the affection that we owe to him should be immortal and imperishable. I observe very distinctly the anthill of inclinations that self-love nourishes and spreads over your heart, and I know quite well the nature of your subtle, delicate, and fertile mind contributes something thereto, but still they are only inclinations, and since you are annoyed by their importunity, there is no reason to suppose that they are accepted by any consent, or at least by any deliberate consent. No, your dear soul, having conceived the great desire with which God has inspired it to belong to him, could not easily consent to any contrary design. Your heart may be shaken by its passions, but I think it can rarely sin by consent. Miserable man that I am, said the great apostle, who will deliver me from this body of death? He perceives a regular army, composed of his humors and aversions, natural habits, and earthly inclinations, that have determined on his spiritual death, and because he fears them, he testifies that he hates them. And because he hates them, he cannot endure them without grief, and his grief finds expression in this affecting exclamation, to which he replies himself by saying, "The grace of God through Jesus Christ should preserve him, not from fear, or from terror, or from alarm, or from battle, but from defeat." It is true, you say, but I have already often taken all the knife to cut off and circumcise my passions. I have done all, as appears to me, that I possibly could, employing so much time, and with very great care and vigilance, and yet I still experience the same aversions, disgusts, and repugnances. Ah, my dear soul, do you know that we are not in this world for enjoyment, but for suffering? Wait a while until you are in heaven, and then you will possess a full peace and a perfect contentment, exempt from all the irregular emotions of a nature vitiated and corrupted by sin, a tranquility and repose unalterable, because it is there that we are to enjoy peace, not in this life, where we must suffer and must circumcise ourselves. He who would live here without passions would not suffer, but enjoy himself, which cannot be, for as long as we live, we shall have passions, and shall never be free from them before death, according to the opinion of doctors received by the church. But why be in trouble, since in combating those passions and motions lies our victory, our triumph, our glory? And he does go on. There are some notes to both of these pages as well that I have not read to you, friends. And there's actually, 2 more pages to this chapter? 2 more pages. So it does go on. You can see that although there's the occasional archaic or complicated word, the bulk of it is said so reassuringly, so lovingly, so accessibly that you're going to be able to get through the book. Again, if your spiritual director has recommended this to you, even better, they're going to help you possibly on that journey. So God bless you, friends. This book, I do think I'm going to highly recommend. I think it's lovely. I think especially in a time of trial that it could be something to go to, but also at different stages. If you like me are stuck in the introduction to the Devout Life on a certain chapel, now that I know that there are more books by St. Francis de Sales, perhaps I can pop out, stop where I am in that introduction to the Devout Life, go out, grab one of these books that speaks to that topic, possibly in the Book of Sermons, and then go right back and re-enter. May God bless you and keep you, friends. May he make his light to shine upon you and to be gracious unto you, and may the good Lord bless you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.